Everyone thinks a 400-watt panel is a 400-watt panel, but here is the thing: you should not buy the Canadian Solar HiKu 400W until you know how it actually behaves once it is bolted to your roof. On paper, it looks like a no-brainer. In the real world, small details can cost you years of production. I put a HiKu 400 through 2 weeks of side-by-side testing against comparable 400 to 405-watt modules in full sun, heat, overcast, and partial shade. What I found will either save you money or save you from a painful mismatch later. Before we dive into what I discovered, quick heads up. If you are already leaning toward the HiKu 400 and want the best price, I have a link below. But stick around, because one pairing mistake and a hidden warranty trade-off might make you rethink how you buy this panel. Here is the setup. I needed a compact, budget-friendly panel to finish an off-grid shed build and to expand a small microinverter string on my garage. I have been burned before by lab numbers that collapse in summer heat and by panels that choke under chimney shade. So I grabbed a Canadian Solar HiKu 400W mono PERC half-cut, a JA Solar 405W, and a Qcells 400W. Over 14 days, I logged output with a Victron MPPT on a 24V battery bank and an Unveil HiKu 7A for an AC comparison, used an IR camera for hotspots, and tracked temperature, wind, and irradiance. Stakes were real. I did not want to drill more holes for something that loses steam in year 3 or trips a microinverter on cold mornings. Test 1, midday peak in real heat. At 1000 Wm2 is fantasy for most rooftops. On a 27°C ambient day with a 49°C backsheet, the HiKu peaked at 366 WDC on the MPPT and sat around 350 to 360 W for a solid window. That aligns with its Pmax temperature coefficient, around -0.35 to 0.36% per degree C. The Qcells hovered at 362 W, JA at 359 W. So far, solid, but then in a 35°C ambient spike with backsheet at 58°C, the HiKu held 338 to 344 W, about a 6 to 8% haircut from the cooler day. Expected, but if you live in Phoenix or Vegas, that temp coefficient is the quiet tax you will pay daily. Test 2, low light and overcast. Under 200 to 400 Wm2, the HiKu delivered 65 to 135 WDC, tapering smoothly. It slightly edged the JA, roughly tied the Qcells. Nothing dramatic, but the HiKu did not fall on its face when clouds rolled in. Good sign for shoulder seasons. Test 3, partial shade and bypass behavior. This is where half-cut architecture matters. With a 2-inch pole shadow across the short edge, the HiKu maintained around 68 to 72% of unshaded power before a substring bypass engaged. With a diagonal shade, it dropped more abruptly to the mid-50s before stabilizing. Translation: edge shade costs you a third to a half. Not everything, but string design and row spacing still matter. Here is where it gets interesting. The panel handled transient shade without nasty hotspot spikes on the IR camera, but once a substring was bypassed, recovery lagged a hair compared to the Qcells sample when the shadow cleared. Not a deal breaker, just a nuance if you have vent pipes or a chimney in play. Test 4, pairing and electrical limits. The HiKu's VOC is in the high 40s at 25°C and climbs in the cold. On a 3°C morning, I measured just over 53V VOC. That is fine for Unveil HiKu 7A or HiKu 8A with 60V headroom, but a cheaper microinverter with a 48V max will trip at dawn in winter. Also, the IMP around 9.5 to 10, a means do not mix this with older 60-cell panels that run 8A in the same string. You will bottleneck the whole string. Finally, the frame is 35 mm standard mid-clamps, MC4 compatible leads, form 2 wire, weight around 21 kg. Snow load rating is robust at up to 5400 Pa and wind at 2400 Pa, which is why these are popular in cold regions. Now the revelation. Everyone fixates on 400W. The real story is warranty and cell tech. The HiKu 400 is a mono PERC workhorse with a typical 12-year product warranty and a 25-year performance warranty that steps down to around the mid-84% range by year 25. That is fine, but N-type TopCon and HJT panels now in the same size class often bring a 25-year product warranty and a stronger 25-year performance guarantee in the 89 to 92% range, plus better high heat behavior. Over 25 years in a hot climate, that delta is not theoretical. It is hundreds of kilowatt hours per panel. Here is the twist. In my testing window, the HiKu's day-to-day output kept pace with the other PERC modules, and the build quality is exactly what you want for snow and wind. If you can land the HiKu at a meaningful discount per watt, it is a great buy. If pricing is close to premium N-type options, the long-term math shifts against it. I also discovered a quiet gotcha: racking and BOS costs. The HiKu's dimensions fit standard rails, but if you are trying to shoehorn one more module into a row with older 60-cell panels, the length and clamp zones do not line up. Plan your row spacing and wire management, or you will pay the installer for a redo. And if you are pairing with microinverters, choose a unit with at least 350W continuous AC and a 60V DC ceiling, or you will clip and trip more than you expect on extreme days. Now that you know the real trade-off: stout real-world performance, solid construction, but a shorter product warranty and typical PERC heat losses, if the HiKu 400 is priced right in your area, grab it before stock swings push the price back up. Link is in the description for the best current deal and compatible inverters and clamps I tested it with. Bottom line, do not buy the Canadian Solar HiKu 400W on specs alone. Buy it for what it is: a reliable, budget-friendly mono PERC half-cut that punches at its class in real sun, shrugs off snow and wind, and behaves predictably under common shade. If you want the longest product warranty, the best heat coefficient, and the highest year 25 output, look at N-type alternatives and be ready to pay a premium. If you are building an off-grid system, expanding an N-phase array with compatible micros, or outfitting a shed or garage roof in a colder climate, this panel makes a ton of sense. If you are mixing strings with low-current legacy modules or squeezing panels around chimneys without a shade plan, pass. Here is what nobody tells you: 400 watts is not the decision. Fit, pairing, and warranty are.